Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. The international spy thriller The Saudi Oil Gambit by Reginald Nelson is a compelling story of contemporary geopolitical intrigue raging across a dozen countries. Reginald Nelson is a pen name and alter ego and the hero of this book series. The character development of Reggie involves many similarities to the actual author. He's a dentist and a pilot. The similarities between the author and his alter ego pretty much end there. The author loves sports, especially pickleball and skiing. Hobbies include model ship building and woodworking. Happily married, he and his wife love to travel internationally, reading great novels and writing. This is the first book in his series involving Reginald Nelson, his best friend Ashonte Black, and Lance Wood. The story continues in Reginald's second book in the series, Disaster at Bushehr. A Saudi terrorist cell is plotting to bring America to its knees. They have their hands on a nuclear device and they want to cripple our oil reserve to keep America needing Middle East oil long into the future. Can they be stopped? You'll find out in the Saudi Oil Gambit by Reginald Nelson, and he joins us by Skype from the Northern Mariana Islands. Dr. Nelson, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Hello, Rick. It's great to be here.
And I guess it's still technically This Week in America. I'm looking and seeing exactly where you are on the map, and you're a U.S. territory over there, so you're part of us.
Yes, we took Saipan from the Japanese in World War II. Saipan is the major island in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, but the most notable island is Tinian, where the Enola Gay took off to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima.
Ah, interesting. A lot of history there as well. It looks like a beautiful place to live. How long have you actually lived there?
Almost a little over 9 years now.
Ah, very good. It's a great place to be based from. I mentioned the international travel. That comes into play in the books in this series. I love this series. Rave reviews. Everybody loves what you're doing, waiting for the next book, which, by the way, will be coming out fairly soon. Let's start with the basics, the pen name, Reginald Nelson. Tell me about that name. I love when people choose pen names. How do you come up with that?
It was kind of fun. I've been a dentist for 42 years now and didn't want to be a dentist who also wrote books. I wanted the books and my authorship to stand on its own, so I decided to use a pen name. And in thinking of names, I was at Dartmouth at a time when Reggie Williams was there, who went on to be an NFL star with
Cincinnati Bengals.
Cleveland.
Yep.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, Cincinnati Bengals, yeah.
Okay. And so I really liked Reginald and decided to use my first name as a last name because growing up, teachers always said, Nelson Crum, okay, what's your first name? So that's where Reginald Nelson came from.
I love that, Reginald Nelson. Remember that because you'll need that going to the website to get all the information, reginaldnelsonbooks.com. Book available at Amazon, all the usual places, and we'll give you that as we go throughout the program. I love the writing style, and everybody compliments the writing style. They say the writing matches the Fast and Furious plot. How did you develop this writing style?
Just years of short stories and writing for other people, and loving to read, and Tom Clancy being one of my favorite authors. And I love international intrigue and the detail he went into in describing different places around the world that I'd never been. I felt like I was there and wanted to emulate his style.
And you do that so well. The reviews all say, boy, I'm reading this and I feel like I'm right there. I feel like I know these people. I feel like I'm there in the middle of the action. That's a real tribute to the writing style. And I want to just ask about spy genres. Sometimes people say that's really difficult. There are a lot of subgenres, side plots you have to work in. You've got legends that are part of that series, starting with James Bond. What was it that fascinated you about this, the spy genre, and then the challenges that presents? And you got a whole lot of moving parts there as you're telling the story.
Yes, I love jumbling a lot of different plots and writing about them chapter by chapter to keep the reader up to par with where the incisor team is going and what's happening in the world. And um, again, it all came from my love of Tom Clancy's work.
You learned well. That's a great influence, and you learned from what he did and all the success that he's had with his books. I mentioned the two, the Saudi Oil Gambit, the Disaster at Bushehr. You've got a third one coming out. Talk about that, and how many books will there be in this series?
Well, as long as I can keep writing, there'll be more books in the series. The Signals from Saipan is the third in the series. And again, living in Saipan, it's such an unusual place. And my piece of paradise. And one of the things the CIA did during the Cold War was install a radar here that was called a Rother, which stands for relocatable over the horizon radar. And this big radar tower is just decaying away, rusting away on top of a hill here that the CIA used to spy on the Chinese and the Russians, and was only up for a few years, but looking at that radar every day gave me the idea for Signals from Saipan. And the plot is that Reginald Nelson comes up with a way to remotely detonate C4 plastic explosives, which are in the terrorists, or Al-Qaeda's handbook of terrorism and bomb making, as very safe materials, and they can store it anywhere without much chance of it detonating. And using the radar and emissions from the signals from Saipan, the C4 is not safe anymore, and it starts exploding in the terrorist hands and causes major strife among the terrorism, which I'm all for.
Well, yes, and it sounds like an intriguing plot. The book is Signals from Saipan. I understand that's just gone for printing. When do you think that'll be available?
I'm hoping next month.
Oh, fantastic. And you can follow that by going to Reginald's website, reginaldnelsonbooks.com, and get information on that there as well. And as I'm talking about the radar that was used during the Cold War, they might want to get out and fire that sucker back up again here, looking at what's going on in the world now. That may come in handy here at some point. I want to go back to Saipan. How did you end up there?
It was a fun story. I grew up and lived in Colorado most of my life. And in 2012, my wife answered a Craigslist ad for a dental position. It said practice in paradise. And in 1993, we had the opportunity to live in Grand Cayman and fell in love with that island and the lifestyle, and wanted to return to that. And there was a dental position open here. And a month later, well, actually 2 months later, I was here, got here February 2nd, 2013.
And no desire to move, it sounds like. It sounds like you're quite happy there.
I want to retire here.
What a place to do it. With us on the program is Reginald Nelson. He is the author of the Saudi Oil Gambit, Disaster at Bushehr, which we're talking about soon. The third book in the series will be out, Signals from Saipan, and his website, reginaldnelsonbooks.com. In the book, the new one, you talk about pickleball. For some people, explain that. They might have heard something about it because it's sweeping the nation, but it's something that I know you enjoy playing. And tell us about it and why you find it so fascinating, because it's really catching on.
It is, and you're in Florida, and there are probably more pickleball courts in Florida than anywhere in the U.S.
Pretty close to it.
Have you tried it yet?
Have not tried it, no. No,
Okay.
but we
You
walk
must.
past some courts every day. The tennis courts, they've converted to pickleball courts. That's a big thing down here, is to make that conversion. It looks like fun.
Yeah. Actually, the sport was invented in 1965 by two men who were trying to entertain their children one summer in Bainbridge, Washington. And it took this long to catch on, but now it is the fastest growing sport in the U.S. and very soon to be considered for an Olympic sport. We're at 70 countries in the International Federation of Pickleball, and when we hit 75 countries actively competing in pickleball, it can be considered for an Olympic event. And it is a combination of tennis, ping pong, and badminton. You can actually put 4 pickleball courts on a tennis court, and it's a really fast-paced, fun, social game. The people are entertaining, and it's just great exercise. I was recovering from hip surgery and had gotten to the point where my hip was feeling well enough that I wanted to get back into tennis. And my wife's sister said, no, he's got to take up pickleball. Well, I'd never heard of the game, but did a little research and put the first court in our parking lot at the dental office here in Saipan.
Wow. So you actually have home court advantage then.
I do. We've outgrown our single court in the parking lot. We now have 7 courts around the island that we play on.
That's just amazing. And you see these people playing it, and they're all having so much fun. And I'm going to have to stop and see if I can join in here at some point. But it's fun watching them and to see the sport grow. I've read that they're talking about professional pickleball leagues around the country. And like you said, Olympic possibly in the future. It's an amazing sport. Are you working on the 4th book in the series?
Just conceptually, but I'm thinking we're heading to Africa next.
Interesting. Now, I mentioned that you and your wife love to do international travel. That's sort of incorporated, is it, in these stories? Because there's a lot of international travel in this series.
Yes. Actually, what was fun, in the first book, the Saudi oil gambit, I talk a lot about Dubai and places in Dubai. And when we first got a chance to visit there, it was fun to see how accurate the descriptions were of places that I'd never been before. My wife's son lives in Vietnam, and our interest in travel worldwide has been a major part of our life.
And now,
not in the last 2 years, though.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I think maybe now is it a little easier to do the international travel. I think a lot of countries, at least right now, are sort of loosening a little bit with limiting the quarantine and all of that other. Will you be able to travel more now?
Yes. Vietnam just opened up last week. Japan is opening up soon. I'm in Rotary, and there's an international convention planned in Japan in May, and it's looking like they're going to lift all the restrictions so that event can be held this year. But
that
travel's
will be
been
good.
tough the last 2 years.
It has been tough, and it's just not the same doing it virtually, getting out and traveling and meeting people in foreign countries, and it'll be nice to get back to doing that. Tell me a little bit about your family. They're with you on this adventure. I'm sure you're talking to them a lot, get ideas, bounce ideas off them for the series. Talk about your family.
I've been married now for a little over 31 years.
Great.
My wife Donna and I are here in Saipan. We're empty nesters. She had 2 children from a previous marriage. Her oldest daughter died, and she has 1 son left. As I said, he and his wife are living in Vietnam now. I have two children from a previous marriage also who are both in Colorado, and that's it for the family so far. There's some grandchildren that are planned, and well, actually, we just lost a grandchild, sadly to say.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It was an IVF situation, and the surrogate happened to be in Ukraine, which I guess is a very popular place for surrogates. And because of the war, anyway, she lost the baby.
Boy, I'm sorry to hear that, but hopefully you'll be able to travel, see the rest of the family. A good reason to do some international travel, to stay in touch with the family. Our guest on the program, Reginald Nelson, is the author of the series we're talking about. Consists now of the Saudi oil gambit, Disaster at Bushehr, and soon Signals from Saipan. Let's go back to that first book. The heroes had this little group you mentioned before that they joined. Tell us about that group, because it's really a key to all of the stories you tell in this series.
In the Saudi oil gambit, three men had come together, Reginald Nelson, Ashonte Black, and Lance Wood, to fight a terrorist plot that was out to destroy or irradiate at least the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and all the oil reserves there, and make us dependent on OPEC for long into the future. At the end of that book, the three men and their wives decide to form an organization called Incisor, which, of course, being a dentist, is a play on teeth, but it stands for International Civilians for a Safe Society Organization. And that theme now is the theme I'm using through all the books. And the group, the Incisor group, has grown to having two teams stationed in Denver and Frankfurt, Germany, to help with fighting terrorism around the world, along with the three main characters.
That's interesting. You've got that group. Did you know when you developed that group for the first book, the Saudi Oil Gambit, that they would play a key role, sort of tying all of the other books in the series together? Did it start out that way, or just after you created the group, you realized they got some legs here? I'm gonna continue this story.
Yeah, legs, teeth.
Yes.
Yeah. I did not think about it at the end of the first book. I was playing around with words, thinking, did I want to call the group Incisor? How about cuspid, molars, different teeth? But no, that was a concept that came to me as I was finishing the first book.
The book is doing so well, and I'm reading reviews. Some say you've created the next great franchise. Some say the pop culture relevant franchise. It's really resonating well, and people like this. Talk about writing this and the satisfaction you get for telling these stories, and then having this terrific response worldwide to your books.
Oh, it's a wonderful release for me to write, and to have it recognized, and people enjoying the work is fun also.
When they read the book, they talk about, okay, this is a long-running series. We can see that happen. And they say, boy, this is made for the screen. Whether it's a big screen or a small screen or both, it really is. Do you see the self as a movie?
I relied so heavily on Tom Clancy, and so many of his books have become movies.
Yes.
I'm hoping that somebody will be interested enough to pick up the series and run with it on the big screen or little screen.
When you sit down to write these, let's start with the Saudi Oil Gambit. Did you plot this out like meticulously so you knew where everything was going to go before you started the writing process with the outline and the whole thing, or did this just sort of evolve in your mind as you created the characters and the situations?
My writing style, I don't plan it all out with outlines and plots and figuring things out on a whiteboard. I just start writing and go where the story takes me.
You know, that's interesting. And character development, how much fun is that? Because these characters come alive. As I mentioned, the locations, you bring them alive. They're very vivid. We feel like we see them. We feel like we're there. The characters you describe so well, we feel like, I think I met that person maybe a couple of weeks ago at the mall. I mean, you really do a nice job in bringing them out. Talk about character development.
It's fun how that's happened too. For instance, Ashonte Black, Reginald Nelson's first contact in the Saudi oil gambit, is based on a man who's my closest friend. Used to live in Arizona, now lives in California. And when I was developing the story, actually by the second book, he said, you know, Ashonte is a female name. And I said, well, in that case, we'll call you Ash. I went and shortening his name to Ash was based on Harlan Coben doing that in his series with the character Wynn.
Okay, sure.
And the other characters, giving them wives, but for a major part of the character development, I'm basing them on real people.
And it works so well. We've got a couple minutes left in the program. One of the reviews said the best knowledge, in-depth knowledge of the Middle East I've ever seen. And two things come to mind there. How often have you visited there? Is that where this knowledge comes from? And so much research do you have to do so it appears that this is a realistic plot that you've got?
Well, one of the fun things that's developed because of the internet is Google.
Yes.
I think of Herman Wouk, who had, I think, a team of 30 investigators and researchers that did all his work for his epics. Now all you have to do is get online and read about places and do a little research, and for the most part, they're very, very accurate. I have traveled 4 times to Dubai. I've never been anywhere else in the Middle East except the United Arab Emirates. So all the other places are because of the internet.
Fascinating. 20, 30 years ago, this wouldn't be possible to do what you do now, maybe even 10 or 15 years ago. It's amazing all of the information that you have when you're putting this together. Just one final question. Everything seems so believable. Is it? I mean, these are great scenarios that are playing out, but you're thinking, I believe that could probably happen. Are they believable?
Yes. The first plot was the terrorists getting their hands on a nuclear device. That's probably one of our biggest fears in this country. The second book, they take out the nuclear reactor in Iran, which there's talk all the time that between Israel and America, they've got to take that out before they develop any nuclear weapons. And the third book is a chance to be proactive against terrorism, which all we have been able to do throughout time is react, and this gives us a chance to do something proactive, which was kind of fun to write about.
And as you're mentioning that, I'm thinking, boy, you've got a lot that you can work with for future books. So I have a feeling we're going to see many more that come out of this series. Our guest on the program has been Reginald Nelson. His website is reginaldnelsonbooks.com. The 3 books we're talking about, The Saudi Oil Gambit, Disaster at Bushehr, those are both available. Soon, Signals from Saipan. Are you working on the 4th one? I think you said that's sort of in the developmental stage that you're working on.
Haven't put anything on paper yet, but I'm working on it in my mind.
Okay, that's good. So hopefully we can talk about that book when it comes out. It's been a fun conversation. I thank you so much for being with us on the program. The books are doing so well internationally. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Rick, thank you. This has been fun.
It has been fun, and all of the information available at the website, reginaldnelsonbooks.com. Find them, of course, at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. Link on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Back on today's program after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.